I sit down, I light one up, and pour myself a drink. And I have found that it picks me up and gives me time to think. It's been a long day, you know it's true, but I'm feeling right at home. And now I must say that time is due. Let's get on with the show, not just blowing smoke.
Hey everybody, welcome to Not Just Blowing Smoke, coming at you live from Twin Smoke Shop Studio headquarters here in Londonderry, New Hampshire, right in the 724 Lounge. If you are streaming with us live, make sure you hit that subscribe button on Facebook or YouTube, wherever you're streaming from. If you're listening after the fact on Podbean, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Spotify, iTunes, Google, or wherever else you may have found that, make sure you let me start over. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so that you don't ever miss a thing. Welcome, everybody. I'm Pastor Padron. I'm here with my co-hosts, Pat and Dave, and we have Debris from the 724 Lounge with us. And tonight we welcome back Tequila Talia with us tonight. And that is because we are doing something really, really cool here at the 724 Lounge. It is the Bourbon Challenge. And the Bourbon Challenge you see laid out before us tonight. And we're going to talk a little bit about what that is in a little bit. But as we kind of go through the Bourbon Challenge and the different bourbons that you have to try in order to complete the challenge, we're going to be smoking this. This is the Kristoff PCA 2022 Vengeance Box Pressed Perfecto. Just showed up at Twins today, and we thought it would be a great cigar to do for the show tonight. It is a USA Connecticut broadleaf wrapper around Dominican binder and fillers from Nicaragua and the Dominican Republic. It is a box pressed perfecto. That means it's thinner at the top, thinner at the bottom, thicker in the middle. You see how it's kind of like an Elmer Fudd cigar that got squished. Okay, and at its thickest point in the middle, it's a 60 ring gauge, and it's 6.5 inches long. And you can get this cigar. The Vengeance Perfecto has been out for a long time with Kristoff. Same makeup, it's just not box pressed, and it's one of my favorite offerings from that brand, from Kristoff. And when you box press something, it takes a lot of the air out from between the tobacco and the cigar, and it actually slows the burn down, which changes how the tobacco performs as you smoke it. So this it's going to be interesting for those of us who've had the Perfecto before to note how this cigar may be different from the regular one that is downstairs all year round. This PCA box press Perfecto is only available to stores that attended the PCA trade show this past summer. Sometimes it takes a long time for stuff to get out. And so that was in July. Here we are in mid-November, and we're just getting them. But it's good stuff here. So we've just lit up, and I'd like to know what people think right off the bat with this. Do you want to start, Pat?
Yeah, it's a nice medium. And a lot of the time when you have a Connecticut broadleaf cigar, you kind of think it's going to be kind of like a medium plus a full-bodied cigar. But as we mentioned in the past, like the wrappers, doesn't necessarily speak to the strength of the cigar. It definitely, like, that broadleaf speaks in the beginning of the profile. Like, your palate gets that nice subtle sweetness, kind of cocoa. That earth note's there. But honestly, in this one, like, typically on broadleaf, you get like a pretty robust earthy note. This one here is a lot more refined, so you get kind of more of that kind of cocoa-y sweetness. There is kind of like this subtle kind of like mineral note to it as well. And then through the finish, the Dominican tobacco really comes out, and that's where it kind of complements that sweetness. You get like a really rich kind of wood note too on the finish. And then there's a slight pepper on the retro, and that kind of lingers on the palate as well. So it's definitely a really, I mean, the other Vengeance, I guess the main difference, I'll just kind of answer that too with it, is on the regular Vengeance, I noticed that I think the pepper is a little bit stronger on it, which is kind of interesting. You would think the box press might kind of bring that forward, but I think the woody note in this, and then that's kind of cocoa sweetness from the wrapper, is a little bit more pronounced on the box press opposed to the regular round one.
Bree, you're looking at the cigar with very
Contemplative.
Contemplative eyes. What are you picking up there, Bree?
I am impressed because for a minute I was trying to figure out if the
We
sweetness
haven't
I
even
was
started
getting.
drinking yet, Bree.
Okay.
Don't say you're confused.
Well, okay. So I was trying to figure out if the sweetness I was getting was like a cocoa note or a raisin note. I didn't really experiment too much with the retrohale, but I've noticed that this cigar and Perfectos are one of my favorite sizes. It's going down very well. The construction's really good. It's burning nicely, and it's just really enjoyable. Nothing about it is really abrasive, and I've just started to get to that point where I'm getting that sweetness, and I did get a strong hint of cocoa, but underneath it I almost got like a slight raisin sweetness. So Pat explaining the blend definitely confirmed that sweetness I was getting a little bit more. So I guess now I'm just kind of looking to see what else comes out of it, because so far I'm really getting that sweetness from the wrapper, and the retrohale was, I think, one of the smoothest that I've had in a while. So
Now, Dave, I know you're a big Vengeance fan. What do you think?
It started the first try is kind of slow, a little bit of that raisin. Now it's already starting to open up, and I'm getting that nice smooth pepper and then the retrohale.
Yeah.
And it's still broadleaf, right? Same wrapper.
Yep. Connecticut
So,
broadleaf, USA Connecticut broadleaf.
Connecticut broadleaf. Connecticut broadleaf. The it's giving you that kind of like a cocoa espresso-y type flavor to myself. It's I feel like it, in comparison to the other one, it's definitely like a more tame, smoother, refined even.
Okay, so you think it's a lot more smooth, not as spicy?
Yeah, not as spicy. It's definitely more so far.
I think it's creamier.
smoother. Yeah, definitely creamier.
the room note's really pleasant too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's just as rich as the other one, but I do think the creaminess that you guys are talking about, I'm definitely picking that up.
The draw is amazing.
The draw is great, and I am still getting plenty of pepper in the retrohale. I don't necessarily want to say that the spice is toned down, but I'm enjoying it very, very much. Are you you look like you're enjoying it. I think you're further
I
along than
like
any of
it.
us.
I do. I like it. I like the flavor a lot better than I was expecting. Because typically,
Well, one of the
go ahead.
one of the things I was excited about when this showed up was I thought this was a cigar that we could enjoy all of these different bourbons with, and it would hold up. Mm-hmm. You know, and
All of these.
all
So
these.
far, it's only up with hers. I don't know if anyone else took a sip yet, but
So
Yeah, we probably should start with that.
why don't we talk a little bit about the Bourbon Challenge? You want to explain what it is and how it works?
yes. So the Bourbon Challenge is a part of this Bourbon Champions program. So if you can see the barrel head back here that we had carved out, it has all of these plaques on it. So anytime a customer at the bar, anytime you try all 8 of these whiskeys, now not in one sitting, but eventually you fill out these cards as you go. They keep them for you at the bar. And once you've hit all 8,
That way
yes,
you
so you
don't
don't
lose
lose them. Because we all know that was get lost right away. You take your
Yep.
card, it's gone. Once you have all 8, your name gets engraved and put right on this plaque. And then you're a bourbon champion,
Which
completed
will
the
be
challenge.
a permanent fixture here at Twins.
So
Yeah.
that must
Pretty
mean
cool.
we're all bourbon champions after today.
That's
We are.
right.
We are.
That's
That is
right.
the plus about being on Not Just Blowing Smoke is that at the end of it, the four of us are going to be
Plaquified.
You're already plaquified. You've
Oh yeah.
She is the
Please,
plaque.
that should have happened.
She is the plaque.
But my
All right.
name will be up there. No, I'm just
So what are we drinking first?
All right, so I've sort of broken it up into categories rather than brand. So we're going kind of like sweet to spicy here. So the first one we have is the Rabbit Hole Cave Hill. So in the challenge, there's 3 different rabbit holes. So that is a straight Kentucky bourbon and a rye that we're going to try. So with the Rabbit Hole Distillery, very traditional but very unique. So all 3 are extremely unique recipes, which is rare in the bourbon world. And they're non-chill filtered, so they're like almost buttery on the tongue. So they're definitely have like a more heavy presence. You can tell that all that fat is still in the liquid rather than when you do chill filter and all that fat gets scraped off the top. So this is a 4 grain here.
Where's my glass? I see it not.
Where'd you put it? Oh, I've got it right here.
Oh, thank you.
Ooh.
So
that
a
is
lot of the
so buttery.
sweetness,
Wow.
and a lot of the sweetness is coming from honey malted barley. So that's where you're getting like a lot of that sweet. It's much sweeter than any of the other ones.
It's so weird. Like if I didn't know it, I would think I was drinking Contradiction bourbon right there because they're so buttery.
Yeah, the Smooth Ambler does the same thing where they don't do the chill filter. I love that.
That is my
Is
favorite.
is
This
that what makes that smooth buttery kind of?
Oh,
Is the non-chill filter?
Yep, when you chill filter a bourbon, which most do, or any whiskey really, all that fat's going to solidify at the top, and they remove it.
Okay.
That also lowers the proof. So when you don't chill filter, obviously that fat's not solidifying. So it's continuously being distilled into the bourbon and really giving it a richer flavor and that real nice buttery mouthfeel.
fat.
That's flavor,
Yeah,
man.
baby.
That's where it's at.
That's
baby.
right.
What do you guys think about how this is pairing with the cigar? How does that smooth?
I think
mean,
that the sweetness of the bourbon really brings out the sweetness of the cigar. But I'm still getting that nice retro hail. It's not ruining that. For me, it's very enjoyable.
It's like
What do you think, Break? It's like candy.
It's like candy.
Yeah.
It's really complementing the sweet notes of the cigar for me, but then that like smoothness, like the texture almost of the bourbon is like making the pairing feel like honey. Like
Yeah, it's
Mhm.
got a very
Honey.
it's got a very thick kind of finish, doesn't
it
it?
does,
Mhm. Viscous.
yeah. So
Ooh, that's a big word, Dave. I'm impressed. Viscous. Brought to you by the letter V.
I'm Daved and confused, not dumb and confused.
Yes, there is a difference. We're not. Yeah, okay. Pat, you look a little bit perturbed by some of the comments that have been going on here. Do you disagree with
No,
Dave and confused?
No, honestly, the bourbon's like, I'll say it's kind of like that umami flavor we talk about. So you get like
You
that.
don't want to say butter. You want
umami.
to say umami.
Umami.
Oh, it's
Yo,
it's
umami.
creamy. It has sweetness. There's a little bit of
Umami.
spice on the tongue, and it has kind of like a very subtle, I want to say kind of orange, kind of citrus, to me at least. And so it's a very like, well, for like it's a wet bourbon. Like makes you kind of salivate a little bit on the finish because of all those flavors. So it really kind of like opens your palate up when you draw from the cigar, and it's not necessarily adding a lot like new flavors to the cigar, but it's like the spice is definitely sitting on the tongue a little bit more pronounced. That wood note comes up, and it actually makes it more of a drier finish smoke. So you go from like salivating from
So
the
you
drink.
go from a wet bourbon to a drier smoke.
Yeah, like you salivate from the actual bourbon due to that sweetness, but then the cigar itself, it's kind of a dry finish cigar, so it's like a nice kind of contrasting thing, but it's also not taking anything away from the cigar. It's making it more pronounced.
Now, I'm just kind of clarifying for the audience here. Is that what when you say wet bourbon? Is that a real technical term?
Well, any liquid is wet, Dan.
That's why I'm asking.
Oh, it's
Because it may seem like
so
so that's a Talia question. Is when you say something's wet,
I know it's an audio term.
I've literally not ever used wet to describe bourbon, but it's Pat. I like his descriptions. They intrigue me.
We like Pat wet.
I feel
I don't
like
know,
what
I
that
prefer
means to
dry
me
pat,
is like
frankly.
the salivation.
Can I bring a Title IX violation forward here?
I think we're out of those forms, Pat. Yeah, I think Bree used them all.
Good point.
Debris.
So when you, I get what you're saying though. When you say wet, you're meaning it makes you salivate.
It makes you salivate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes you salivate. I was just curious at whether or not that was an actual technical way to describe a bourbon or a
Savory
It is now.
umami works. Yeah.
It is now.
Savory. It's very wet.
That
It brings the wet out.
that could be your contribution to TU.
Wet finish bourbon.
Wet finished bourbon. There you go.
Okay.
Bring the wet
Wet
out.
finished bourbons with dry cigars.
Yeah. Oh
Okay.
boy.
So let's talk about this challenge here. So you come, you try a bourbon or two, you get a card. The bartenders check off which ones you've had. You put your name on it so they know whose it is. And then they keep it here at the bar so that you don't have to worry about leaving it in the wrong pair of pants or losing it on your way home. And when you finish it, you get your name put on the plaque.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how long of a time? What's the window for people to get this done?
Till it's full.
Till it's full. So there's
Yep.
no
No
you don't, it's
time
not
limit
like
or
it's
anything
not
like
like
that.
just a week long thing or a
Nope.
month long thing. It's if there's space on the plaque, you can still do it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if people were really pumped about it, would we get a second plaque?
Oh yeah, I mean, if this really takes off, and we have the board complete, and a lot more people are still wanting to fill it out, then we can absolutely do another one.
Okay, so this is not something where it's a time sensitive thing where
Right.
we have to worry about it. That's good to know.
Yeah, and they're also doing flights at the bar as well. So if you want to sort of leapfrog, if you will, you don't want to try like one today, one tomorrow. You can try 3, 4 at a time in smaller
In
measurements.
smaller amounts.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's been a popular option lately.
Yes.
I will say. 1 ounce, 4 pours.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. It's a way for you to really get through the 8 quick without getting totally sloshed at the same
Right,
time.
and it's a nice way to compare them.
Yeah,
when you have
yeah,
them
side by
4 of
side.
them
That's one of the
at a
reasons
time.
I'm looking forward to this. Is
Yeah.
to try everything side by side. So what do we think about the this is the Cave Hill?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
What do you guys think about this bourbon?
I love it.
It's easy
love
like
that.
Sunday morning.
Yeah, there you go.
It's very approachable, and if you like a really sweet finished bourbon, it's definitely one I would suggest.
Yes.
And it does bring out the sweetness in the broadleaf. Man, that's really, really good. Why don't we go on to the second choice here? What's next?
All right. So the next one we're doing is the Jefferson's very small batch.
Jefferson's very small batch.
Yes, sir.
BSB.
That's right. So this one, I don't want to pour over here. So this is their base bourbon, Jefferson's.
Okay.
So it is, I mean, in my opinion, it's everything you expect from a bourbon, right? You're getting vanilla notes, you're getting that really oaky flavor, but it's not as sweet, of course, as the Cave Hill, but it's still going to have that bourbon sweetness to it. And we are just doing small pours here, everybody. Don't worry. Nah. All right. Dave?
Donka.
Much lighter, much more of a regular, what you'd almost expect, that bourbon kind of burn. I didn't really get that from a Cave Hill. I could drink it and
So I noticed that, yeah, I noticed that the rabbit holes and the smooth amblers, even though they're higher alcohol content, so they're 95 proof instead of 80 proof, right around, they are smoother. And a lot of that has to do with keeping all that fat in there. So it gives you that texture that's going to coat your tongue and make it a little bit easier on the palate. Not that crazy burn you sometimes get.
Bree, what are you picking up?
This is definitely, I mean, Jefferson's, I've had it a number of times, and I would say it's a go-to in the way that like a Woodford would be a go-to. It's that very like oak forward, you know, have it with like a medium full cigar, like just your typical bourbon.
Very classic.
Yes, very, very classic. Definitely not as unique, I would say, as the first one. Definitely almost refreshing after that intense like oil finish that you got from the first one. It's really not like that intense, but I will say I could almost see you like having this with a stronger cigar and having it bring out a little bit more of the spice in it, because I feel like the last time I had Jefferson's it was it almost felt a little spicier, and I think I was having it with a stronger cigar, like maybe like a Padron or something like that. But like in this format, after the pairing we just tried, it's pretty smooth and
Mellow.
straightforward.
Yeah.
Very mellow.
I find it's really mellowing out the Jefferson.
Pat?
Yeah, I was saying what I noticed with it is with the bourbon is like what Bree was saying, like it's a lot more oak forward, so you don't have that really kind of thick, creamy texture we had in the Cave Hill. So I'll say it's more of a drier bourbon, you know, because it has a lot more of
It's
that
not as
kind of
wet.
oakiness. There's a very subtle sweetness to it. And then the cigar itself, now the creaminess that was lost from the Cave Hill is now here again, because again, you don't have that really thick textured bourbon on your palate. So that creaminess from the cigar is coming more forward. That sweetness is still coming forward. The oak note is still present. Well, the wood note, which you can say is now an oak note from the bourbon's there, but it's not really as robust as it was with having that really sweet Cave Hill. So
I feel like for me, it's brought out a lot more of the woody notes of the cigar. I still get that coffee, but a lot of the sweet is gone. Like the bourbon here just seems to take a lot of the sweetness out of the cigar, and you get more of those. The cocoa. The flavors are all still there, but the sweetness and that sweet cream of the cigar that we had with the first pairing with the Cave Hill, it's not as intense for me. The pepper and spice seems to be staying about the same. Does anyone else have anything to add to that?
the only other thing I'll add is I think it brings out more of like the bitterness from kind of that earthy note from the broadleaf, and like probably like a little bit of clove.
I could see that.
Yeah, I get a little clove in the retrohale.
I'm kind of curious to see, because I feel like with the cigars we smoke, usually it's either they mellow out a lot or the spice builds. And so it's going to be interesting to kind of see if the spice that might potentially build in the cigar is because of the particular bourbon that we're trying, or if it's the cigar itself just building.
Yeah, being the
Intensity.
perfecto, like every time we have a drink, we're getting closer to that 60 gauge.
Right.
So it's, I think that's a lot of that, like that woodiness coming out more, and like that spice is a lot kind of because of the Vitola opposed to the bourbon. So it is kind of interesting kind of doing it as a cigar burns through, but
Okay. Is everyone done with their second thing here? What's third on the list?
All right, so third is the Jefferson's Reserve.
Jefferson's Reserve. Now, what's the difference between reserve and very small batch?
So the Reserve is it's essentially just an elevated version of the small batch. So they're
Okay.
they're adding
Small batch.
yes, exactly. They're adding another blended another bourbon to the blend. And this one is more about paying more attention to the finish. So they're more careful about the aging. They're using the oak barrels still. But the blender and the distiller are paying... Well, I can't... Oh, my God. This couch, I'm sinking.
This This is how we trap our customers.
Yes, right? Just the cozy seats, like, oh, I'm just gonna chill here.
Laid back.
Okay. Do a little palate
Oh,
cleansing
yeah,
here.
a little.
There we go. Okay.
So let's see. Flavor should be much more robust in the reserve.
I actually think it's a little sweeter. Am I on crack?
Nope.
I
Well,
think you're
I'm not
wet.
sure, but
Wet crack.
I get like more of a like a redwood instead of an oak. And there's a little bit. I
That
think
was out in the woods a lot as a boy.
Little Californication there.
the I think on the initial hit on
California.
the palate, there's a little bit more heat, but then as it settles, it doesn't have like that kind of bite finish to it.
No, it doesn't.
And then yeah, there was a little bit more sweetness, kind of like on the sides of your palate, that lingers through the finish, which wasn't there with the rare
small batch.
batch.
It's
It tastes more delicate, I would say.
Delicate. It's a good way to put it.
It is, yeah.
I get a lot of caramel with the reserve.
Gives me more of a Scotch feel.
Okay.
Interesting.
And I'll
like,
say,
not in
like-
the peated sense, but
It brings out like a lot more of the Dominican characteristics of the cigar. So I'm getting like a little bit more of that creamy note. I'm getting
Yeah.
more of that Dominican sweetness, and I'm getting
Yeah.
more of like the, I guess the brown pepper you get in Dominican tobacco is coming out over kind of that black pepper you get from the broadleaf.
It's totally on point as far as I'm concerned, Pat.
I don't know. I'm getting baking spice vibes. Mainly from the bourbon too. I'm curious, is this one also non-chill filtered?
Oh no, none of the Jeffersons.
None of them.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm definitely not getting that coating.
Mm-mm.
No. It's crazy because it has the sweetness but not the coating.
Right.
Right.
So it makes
Yeah.
me
It's that
wonder about
texture.
the process.
It's not
like, how
wet.
do they do
It's-
that? Yeah.
It's funny. It really is funny how liquids can have different textures.
Yep.
It's like the finish is long enough to kind of cut through the broadleaf, but it's not long enough to really maintain for the finish. And I think that's why the Dominican tobacco is coming out more. 'Cause it's kind of cutting through the wrapper almost.
Yeah, the like bitter cocoa and like espresso notes have gone down. It's like it's making this cigar very sweet.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep. That's what I'm experiencing too. So, Talia, what have you been up to lately since you were on with us last? It's been a little bit.
Lots of lamb.
Well, of course. I mean, come on. When was the last time I was on? Probably before my trip, right?
Oh, yeah, way before your trip.
Oh,
Months
yeah.
and months ago. Couple
Time
of fortnights.
flies. Yeah, I took a trip out. I did a Mediterranean cruise.
Ooh.
So I did Italy and Greece. Oh my God. Let's just say I'm going back next year. I'm already planning a trip.
Booked before you got home. You know?
Yeah.
So next year we're doing not just blowing smoke from a cruise ship.
Yep, absolutely.
Yes.
Well, definitely not a cruise this time. I didn't care for the whole cruise. It was the first time I did a cruise. Not really for me. I mean, it was convenient because you had a home base, but next time I'm just going to do the whole, like, you know, Airbnb or hotel or whatever, 4 days here, 4 days there, you know,
That's awesome.
and just do ferry rides in between. Yeah, but man, it's unbelievable out there. I'd never been to the Mediterranean, and I tell you, I didn't want to come home.
What was your favorite place that you visited?
It's a toss-up between Athens and Crete. So everyone knows Athens, but Crete is this really beautiful island. It's one of the biggest islands in the Mediterranean, actually, and it's where my family's from. so also holds a place. But it's mountainous, it's green. I mean, when we were inland, it felt like we were in northern New Hampshire. It was so like, trees and plant life, and all the food you're eating is grown right in their gardens, and all the meat you're eating is raised by their farmers. I mean, everything is so local out there. It was unbelievable. I would live there for sure. And then, of course, the Parthenon was amazing because
Oh, sure.
walking in history is unbelievable.
Yeah. There's nothing like. We think that 200 or 300 years old is old here in New England. It's nothing.
No,
Nothing.
when you get into the millennials,
Nothing.
millenniums.
Yeah.
Yep. There's,
Thousands of years.
yeah, there's nothing like walking into a building that people have been using for millennia.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Very, very true.
Unreal.
Local food.
What was my favorite?
What was your favorite?
Oh, it's so tough.
Can you pronounce it?
Yeah. Actually, one of the favorite things I ate was in Italy, the arancini.
Mm.
I don't think I can eat it ever again unless I go back out there. It was so good. I mean, it was
What is
it was
arancini?
crazy. They're the fried risotto balls. So there's cheese and risotto and meat and there's bacon in mine. Just
I'm sold.
unbelievable. And of course, my husband's eating it so fast. I'm like, stop, because we're sharing a plate. He's like inhaling it. I'm like, no, I want to taste it. And then octopus was shockingly delicious.
Really?
It was.
If it's cooked right
It was
way,
cooked
it's
and
fantastic.
fresh.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'd never tried it before. Because I mean, we're in New Hampshire.
Even better.
Not many octopus are.
Yeah, I mean, you see them like frozen at Market Basket. And you're like, oh, I don't want to do that. Yeah. So it was. I was still expecting there to be some chew to it, because, but no, it was crazy tender. It was. They braised it in something I don't even know, like some white. I don't know. It was delicious, and the feta cheese out there is just ridiculous.
Nothing like feet cheese.
My magic word.
I love cheese.
Magic word.
Greek salad. Yep. The cheese.
Were you able to have a cigar or something out there too?
No, because
That's disappointing.
I know. Well, they sold cigars on the ship and
Right.
alcohol, but they don't let you take it until you leave.
Really?
And when we were out and about, that was one part I didn't like about the cruise ship, was we were so rushed. So, I mean, I came home and I was like, I didn't buy like anything. I mean, I bought some stuff, a couple of presents for people and stuff for us, but we were so rushed when we were on the shore or at the ports. It
almost
I
takes
didn't
some
have
of
a
the
chance
joy
to
out
even
of it.
find. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So as
The
fun as it
Airbnb
was,
next time,
but
yeah.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
take our
Gotcha.
time,
Right.
So what was it about the cruise itself that did not work for you?
It was really just, I didn't want to be so rushed,
Okay.
and they were not very descriptive on their like shore excursions, so it
45
was
minutes.
it was crazy. Like they would put, oh, you have 6 hours here, but they don't tell you that that's from the minute you step off to the minute you step back on the boat, and you're always having to travel to get to where you're going. So travel time, I think an hour and a half, sometimes an hour that we're traveling to where we're going. So I'm like, okay, so it's actually not 6 hours, it's 3. And that's quick when you're trying to see.
Right.
So definitely next time, just staying. I'll live out of a suitcase for a couple weeks, whatever.
Did you meet any relatives over there?
No, but I did meet the owners of the restaurant, had the same, so Bruladakis is my last name, well, maiden name. And that's, apparently, Dakis is like the ending of last names in Crete for a lot of people. So the people who owned the restaurant we went to ended in Dakis. I don't remember the first part, but. So that was pretty cool. And they were like, oh, Bruladakis, yeah, I know that last name. There's a hospital. Bruladakis Hospital out there.
Jeez.
I know.
You're gonna have to do that 23andMe thing and find out what you're.
What the exact?
Yeah.
I think it was my papu's grandfather was from Crete, so because my dad was born in Athens, so they had already moved off the island by then.
Very cool. ready for bourbon number 4?
Mm-hmm. Wow, we're on 4 already. This is huffing.
Well,
Throw it back, Talia.
we're having little sips here.
A little wetting.
Yes. Just a wee bit. So I think
bit.
we've done
So we
Jefferson
allowed it.
Ocean before. But this is voyage 24. So
Speaking
that's
of
the newest
cruises.
voyage. Well,
Wasn't that one we did on the show like 11?
I don't remember what number it was.
No, I don't remember either.
Maybe
I
that's
think
just
it was
because
like
of the movie.
21 or something.
No, it's definitely low. It was
Lower
a low
than
number.
that?
Yeah,
I guess it was a while ago that we did
it
it.
was like 2 or 3 years. Yeah, when we did the first one.
So I believe this voyage was down in around like the Gulf. It left out of Florida.
Flow Rider.
Florida. So every Jefferson Ocean has this little tag on it,
Yep.
and it tells you where it's been, which is kind of neat.
Okay.
All right. Oh,
Let's take a little sip of this. That's definitely got less sweet. Definitely more spice. But still very smooth. It's not as it's the wrong word, but I'll use it anyway, rough as the small batch.
Do you know how long the voyage was?
they're usually I don't think it tells you, but
You, know,
they
you gotta
usually.
scan it or something. It'll tell you, yeah.
I think you can go onto their website, and it'll tell you like exactly how long it was on the ocean. Oh, it tells you the temperatures and stuff too. I didn't see that before.
Yes, you can find out everything. And all that affects.
Right.
How this is
Temperature, yeah, exactly. Climate.
And for those of us who weren't here like 2 years ago when you did the Jefferson's Ocean, what is taking a barrel on a ship do that you can't do on land? I mean, what makes that so special?
So, the first part would be it hyper ages it. So because the barrel's constantly moving, all the liquid is in contact with the wood at all times instead of just if you're
Sitting
thinking
there
of
and
it
then, yeah,
stable, right?
Molecularly, slowly
Mm-hmm.
doing it. Yeah.
So it could, if this is sitting on this ship for only a couple of years, which is the minimum for bourbon, it could be taste just as aged as the 5 years as their other bourbons. So because of that constant motion,
Good song.
also the staves in the barrel allow air in. So when you're in different climates and when you're on the ocean, you're getting all these different flavors from the sea air and from even if it's humid out or if it's cold out or if you're in sometimes they're over in Africa, sometimes they're over near South America, so it's all very different environments.
Right?
And all of that's seeping into the whiskey as well. So anytime you get a voyage number, it's going to taste a little bit different.
Right.
That's awesome.
So
That's
none of them taste exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What do you guys think about how this is working with the Vengeance? Don't all speak at once.
So the bourbon, you gonna go, Dave?
No, go ahead, Bet. I'll follow up.
To me, the bourbon has like an even ratio of sweetness to heat. So it's still like it's definitely present on the palate, a little bit of heat, but that sweetness does combat it a little bit. And then on the cigar itself, honestly, it's kind of. Is there any Nicaraguan in the cigar? Or is it just Dominican flavor?
Yeah, there's Nicaragua
All right, so there we go.
in the filler.
So this is bringing out more of that Nicaraguan characteristic of the cigar. So I'm getting more of that kind of like dark leather, a little bit more earth. The sweetness is seldomly there.
Yeah.
And then I'm getting a little bit of I'll call it a yeah, like a black pepper. So it's definitely bringing out more of that Nicaraguan kind of characteristic of the blend.
Yeah.
Definitely getting more of that spice.
Yeah. It's definitely like a smooth black pepper.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe even added a little bit of creaminess to the cigar back. But yeah, a lot more earth and leather than there ever was before. You know, that's definitely more prevalent. prominent. That's what I meant. Probably.
And mind you,
Prevalent,
just gonna make up
prominent. Yeah.
Yeah.
at least where I'm at right now, like I'm at the full 60 gauge of the Vitola here, so I think again like the fillers are gonna start coming more alive here because obviously it's
Right.
more filler now. But yeah, I definitely say like I'm getting a lot more of a Nicaraguan experience with this pairing.
Would you agree, Bree?
So I really appreciate having like the full tobacconist perspective because it seems like each one of the bourbons has catered very uniquely to each different tobacco in the cigar, which kind of makes me feel like this is a very versatile cigar. So like overall with the whiskeys, I'd say my two favorites would be the first one, the Cahill, and this Jefferson Ocean. I do feel like the Ocean is more complex and that like you really get, like Pat was saying, that smooth heat,
Yes.
but you also get the sweetness. And we're at a point in the cigar where I would expect no sweetness. Essentially, like we're at that, the largest part of the cigar where the ring gauge gets the fattest. I don't want to say fat, but so I would
Don't
not
fat shame the
typically.
cigar.
I wouldn't typically expect to get the sweetness at this point, and I don't. But the bourbon really like brings it back.
Yeah.
So like I feel like if I had this pairing again, I would want to have it just with the Jefferson's Ocean and kind of see how that initial like the first third of the cigar would go with this Ocean because I feel like that sweetness would be really intense.
So the 4 right now, you're looking at 1 and 4 as far as the pairing so far.
Yes. Yep.
Now, I haven't asked you a whole lot about what you think about the cigar and the bourbon and all that. What's your take on how this is affecting it?
Yeah, with the Cave Hill, now, I'm not crazy into sweet when I'm smoking or drinking, so just personally, I enjoyed the pairing with the Cave Hill, but it was
Right.
so sweet.
Yeah.
It was almost like I need this as just a dessert after my meal.
Okay.
But with the Ocean, it balanced out. So with the very small batch, it muted the bourbon for me. Like this really muted the bourbon taste. The Reserve, I thought, paired pretty nicely because I still got those really nice, rich notes out of the Reserve that I typically get. But this Ocean is almost a perfect balance so far to the 4 for me.
I would agree with that.
Ready for 5?
Yes, sir.
I guess so.
I don't know. Let's just repeat the Ocean.
Well, this is the Ocean Rye next. So this is new, actually.
love
This
rye.
isn't.
Oh, you're gonna have to talk a little bit about that.
So I mean, it's Ocean just rye. So
It's a raw ocean.
yes,
The ocean's a
exactly.
rye.
It's a dry rye ocean,
Dry rye ocean.
as opposed to
Not
wet,
so wet.
moist.
It's a little
Oh
salty.
boys, little salt. So yeah, this one's not actually at the bar because it's brand new. So I figured we'd try it though because we are doing
Well, you're leaving
4
the bottle
Jeffersons.
then.
Yep.
All... Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Excuse me.
Probably.
I feel better.
You good? You good?
Yeah.
You good?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You want me to take?
Oh yeah. Oh.
Like, what am I doing?
What?
You can definitely taste the rye.
Oh, I've actually only tried this 1 time. So. And I'm actually excited to try this right next to the original Ocean to see.
It's got a much longer finish.
Spice.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, lots of spice.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa, baby.
So I got a lot of sweetness, spice, a little bit of heat, and
Mm-hmm.
then like a really like savory leather.
That just lingers.
Yep. It's kind of like a creamy leather on the finish. And then the cigar.
Wow. That's a new favorite.
So interestingly enough, like immediately on the retro,
Mm-hmm.
you get like a dark hickory sweetness.
Wow.
That's crazy weird, right? Doesn't taste like anything.
But it tastes like a lot.
And then you get like that kind of creamy dark earth, a little bit of bitter espresso.
Yeah, it definitely brings out a lot more bitter
Yep.
kind of flavors in the cigar. We've said it so many times. Bitter doesn't mean
It's not bad.
bad.
Yeah, it
Sometimes
brings out
bitter
like
is totally what you're after, you know, because that's going to be espresso, cocoa, you know.
yeah, it brings like the sweetness forward on the cigar, but then it gets lost in like the darker kind of characteristics of the blend. So again, like that brief kind of hickory sweetness. Again, like in the past, I've mentioned that Nicaraguan tobacco typically gives you that kind of hickory sweetness if you get it, and then you get again like those darker notes like from the broadleaf wrapper, like that really like kind of like rich earth, a little bit
Yep.
of dark leather, oak wood, and then that it's adding the espresso note. So I haven't had the espresso yet, so that espresso bitterness to it as
Yeah,
well.
I feel like it totally kills the pepper in the retrohale
It does.
because the spice from the spice from it totally counteracts the pepper in the retrohale. It makes it just creamy,
Yeah, it makes it more like
a white
bitter
salt.
cocoa. More
Yeah,
kind of those bitter espresso notes. That hickory sweetness though that you're talking about, that's there, but it's not the same kind of sweetness that was
Originally in the cigar.
originally in the cigar.
You
at
guys
all.
said like raisiny sweetness, cocoa sweetness in the beginning. I'll say that the retro gives you like a very subtle white pepper, like it kind of nips the nose a little bit, but then like in the back of my palate, I'm getting kind of a black pepper still. So
Yeah.
it's not like I'm not getting that sensational pepper, but I'm getting that texture on my palate still.
smoke some weed.
This is fascinating to me because so one of my favorite ryes hands down is the Jefferson cognac cask.
Yeah, I was telling her about
We
that
were just
before.
talking
Very,
about that earlier.
very similar. That is hands down my favorite rye. Like if we have that on the bar, that's what I'm recommending to people. And this is
have it in
eerily
the
similar.
state.
Like it has the same essence that captivated me about the cognac rye. Like
Okay.
it still has that like smooth heat, but it also has that like faint like vanilla like hickory sweetness that you guys were talking about. It feels very refined. And like this is one of those ryes that doesn't kick you in the face and you could just
Yes.
keep drinking. It's dangerous.
Yes.
The right kind of sweetness.
I love the way this finishes. There's so much going on.
Cognac cask has competition.
Hey, that's fine because I don't think it's even in the state right now.
Oh, that's staying here.
What?
That's fine.
Did you say danger or staying here? Or what?
No, I said that's staying here.
That's the stain there.
that's the stain.
Oh
No.
my gosh. Very good. Wow.
I like
Now-
this so much better than the first time I tried it with the cigar.
Really?
I like
That's one of my
Unbelievable.
favorite things to ask too, is how the cigar impacts how you enjoy the bourbon.
right. I mean, I tried this only just one time last weekend when I first got the bottle, and I was like, okay, this is good. Having it with the cigar, I don't know exactly how to describe it, but there's something.
It's a great pairing.
Yeah, there's something in it that I'm tasting that I didn't taste before.
You have no idea what it is, though? No,
That's what she said.
it's not wet. Dry.
It's delicious.
Very good.
Very. All right, number 6.
Let's keep it moving. All right. While Talia is pouring, why don't we go around and kind of share which pairing so far we think is our fave?
Hands down that Jefferson's rye. Oh
The
my
Jefferson
God.
Ocean Rye.
That Jefferson rye is really good, but I'm still on the Cave Hill.
Actually, you know what? To Dave's point, if you're talking about in relation to the cigar, so my answer is the rye, like straight up just the bourbon as is. But I do think that that first pairing was insanely complimentary.
So
Yeah.
as far as the pairing goes, the Cave Hill. As far as the bourbon goes, the Ocean Rye. Okay. Pat, what about yourself?
It's kind of weird because like each bourbon, again, being like a cigar kind of geek with it, so each bourbon has kind of brought something unique out of the cigar. So
That's also true.
I have like multiple favorites for different reasons, but the Ocean, the original Ocean that we had, I like because again, like I'm primarily a Dominican cigar guy.
Yep.
So the fact that that bourbon brought out the Dominican fillers forward over like again like broadleaf wrapper, that's a really kind of potent wrapper, so it's kind of tough to kind of cut through that. But bringing that Dominican kind of sweetness, that leather, that brown spice out was very unique to me. But I think the Cave Hill in the beginning also, just because it was a unique kind of like thick, wet bourbon, whatever you want to call it, but having that kind of like salivating finish, and then
Wet
making the cigar itself be more of a dry smoke was unique. So it's kind of tough to pick right now. I think at the end of it I'll have a better answer, but it's between those two again, because like my love for Dominican cigars and then that kind of unique spirit experience in the beginning. We have the Cave Hill. So
Yeah, I think the Cave Hill certainly is in my top. If I were gonna pick, it would be hard. It would be between the Cave Hill and the Jefferson Ocean, frankly, because
The rye one, yeah.
I'm no the original
The original.
the original Ocean, because I'm kind of the flip side of Pat. I'm more of a Nicaraguan guy when it comes to tobacco
I
profiles.
really-
So
I
since
really wanna-
that brought out more of that, I really enjoyed that very much. They've all been very good. They've all brought out, like Pat said, very different aspects of the cigar, and I think the cigar has kind of tweaked the bourbon too, as we've smoked it.
You know what I would really
drunk
want to
it.
try the Ocean with? Not the rye, the other one. I want to try that with the Saka Khan.
Yvonne's dancing in the audience.
well, that cigar was good.
If we ever get any
With
more,
Yvonne. Smoking with
if we ever get
Yvonne.
any more of on, hint, hint.
That means give us more of them.
I feel like what's unique about this episode is that we can kind of like reference in the future if we were to try each one of these bourbons with a different cigar that we decided might go well with each one.
Yes, an 8-hour
This is
episode.
like this is almost like the deciding
Right.
factor episode. Yeah.
I mean, Saka Khan, that's another broadleaf with Dominican,
That should be like a
Nicaraguan
Christmas episode.
fillers,
We just
you know.
all
yeah.
day,
Just
all day, just smoking
open
and
a close.
streaming. Oh my gosh. Would you
Oh,
give
he's
it an
back.
8-hour
Eight
episode?
French bottles.
She
set up the bunk beds. We're staying here.
There you go. We'll promote the Saka Khan for that. That's fine. Yep.
Oh my goodness. Okay,
All right.
so this is the rabbit hole. What? Which one is this?
The high gold.
The high gold.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
High
this-
gold rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Oh.
Talk a little bit
So
about
this
that.
one might give you guys almost that combo, because you all liked that sort of buttery kind of texture of the Cave Hill. So this is going to have that, but it's also going
does.
to have spice to it because it's
Ooh,
a high rye
It does.
bourbon. So it's still a bourbon,
Wow.
but it has a high rye content. So it's going to be
It's fat
Spicier.
and sweet and spicy. Fat and
yes.
spicy, yeah.
exactly this
Wet and spicy.
is my favorite out of the whole line. This bourbon is my favorite bourbon
What's
just
the
in
price point?
general. Right now it's on sale for $45, so $10 off. All the rabbit holes are. So hit that liquor store, guys.
Yeah.
And the Ocean, for the first time I've ever seen it, is on sale for $75 instead of $80. So just putting that out there.
Very good.
Now, is the rye available in the stores, or
Yeah.
is that
So it's not available everywhere yet. So it's still in test market.
Okay.
Talk to
But if
Talia.
they're going, yes, just
Talk to
you need
Talia.
you need me to find out where it is. I got you. All right.
Pat, I'm interested in what your super
Ooh,
taste buds
wow.
pick up with this. Because it is a mix of that kind of oily, nice, smooth,
It brings
creamy,
the pepper
but
back.
spice. Yeah,
It brings the pepper back though, but it's spicy. But it brings the pepper back in the retro
bring
Yeah,
ale.
it has like
Pepper back, pepper
I'm
back.
getting
Yeah.
more pepper in the retro ale with this than with anything else so far.
yeah. So the drink it's a really thick sweetness. I'll say it's kind of like a malty kind of caramel sweetness.
sweetness.
There is a lot of heat on
That's
it.
going on the soundboard.
There is a lot of heat to it, but again, due to that really thick sweetness, it really combats it. But you still feel it. It's a really fuller bodied spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And then the cigar,
Yes,
Yes.
yes. We're waiting on you, Pat. Yes.
yeah. So you're getting more of a
Process that palate.
so on the retro. You're getting more of like a red pepper. It's like a Cajun kind of pepper.
Mm,
Hmm.
And
true.
then you get. So there was a little bit of a black pepper on the palate, but then you're getting a lot more of that leather note that gets brought out.
Mm.
A little bit of like a creamy kind of wood, and then yeah, just like the earthiness.
Creamy
So I
wood.
think it's on this one. There was that sweetness, so I think it's bringing out. It's enhancing a little bit of that wrapper,
Mm-hmm.
but again, like to the Jefferson's Ocean, it's bringing out. Or was that the Ocean that brought out the Nicaraguan fillers?
Yes.
It was one of them.
The first one, yeah.
So yeah, so like the darker Nicaraguan characteristics are being brought out, but the wrapper is also being complemented as well.
Mm.
But yeah, it's definitely bringing out like on this one the spice notes getting more enhanced, like the Dan's
Yes,
point. Like it
yeah.
has
Which is
I guess-
weird, right?
Real
Because it's a
spice.
spicy drink,
Real
and
Yeah.
you get the and it's bringing
which
the
is
spi-
so
which is-
complementary. So
yeah.
it's multiple layers of pepper through the retro and then the finish on the palate.
I'm really digging that. Bree, what about you?
Yeah.
Are you digging that, or is it?
I'm
Too
I'm
much
fascinated.
pepper for you.
So honestly,
Yeah, this is
so
my favorite
in
pairing
my
so far.
yeah, in my opinion,
Oh.
I was gonna say like
I'm
so this
kinda-
cigar, like I was saying before, was kind of complex where it had different elements that catered to each different bourbon. I feel like this pairing is the exact match of this cigar. So the cigar
Right.
has different types of tobaccos that cater to different aspects of each bourbon. This
Right.
bourbon has taken the sweetness from the K-Pale. It's taken the complexity of the ocean. It's taken like that like oaky, solid, refreshing taste from the standard Jeffersons and the Jefferson small batch, and it's fused them somehow all into one bourbon. So this bourbon is the well-rounded bourbon that you would put with a well-rounded cigar. So I think that I'm just guessing that this is going to be the pairing for this cigar out of all of the bourbons.
I'm also gonna say this is definitely my favorite Kristoff now. This cigar is amazing. The box pressing of this has just totally changed the cigar.
How so?
It's just because of all the different bourbons we've gone with it. Like I just feel like, I don't know. Maybe
I don't
I'm
know. It was so much
maybe I'm
better when I was
punch-drunk,
drinking
but-
it with 8 different bourbons.
Sick so far, but yes, it's the draw is just perfect on this.
Yeah,
And
but
I
it's
feel like
perfect on the. It's perfect on the round.
I feel like it's better.
Really.
I feel like the draw is definitely better on this. It's more. I feel like with the Perfecto, you're getting the draw for me always changes depending on the width of the cigar.
Okay.
This is very consistent,
Okay.
and it is in that respect. Since you're getting the same draw every time, it's almost like you're able to taste 8 different bourbons and still being able to make a good comparison.
Yeah,
Where-
I will agree with you, and kind of push that point too. That with the standard Vengeance Perfecto, the tightness of the draw increases or decreases depending on where you were at in the cigar, and that's common with Perfectos.
Yeah, that's not a negative.
No. You almost expect it.
Mm-hmm.
And to your point, Dave, I don't get that with this.
Mm-hmm.
It's been
No.
one kind of consistent
Right.
pressure as you're drawing, no matter where you are at in the cigar.
And that goes to the testament to the rolling too, because we're all getting that. I mean,
Yeah.
that's pretty awesome. At least I think we're all getting it.
My experience with the original Vengeance Perfecto is it's a pretty open draw. I would say like it's open draw, like it's an effortless draw, you can call it. And then with the Perfecto, it's more of that like sipping water through a straw. So it's still an open draw, but it's a little bit more resistance. So I guess like the smoke output is more subdued. So it's not really overwhelming your palate. But I have noticed that with, again, like echoing what I said in the beginning of the show, that the spice note is more pronounced. So I think due to a little bit tighter of a draw, like that, again, like that wrapper speaking more, like that broadleaf wrapper is more prevalent. So you're getting more of that spice from the broadleaf opposed to, like the fillers.
What do you think, Talia, about this particular pairing with the high gold?
It's definitely the spiciest, which
Yes.
I love.
Yeah.
Amen to that.
Yes, so that's not negative. It's very spicy, but in a good, flavorful way. And like I said, this is my all-time favorite bourbon, and it's not making me hate it.
I think with Yvonne over there needs another drinky.
I think she
Yvonne
does.
needs another drinky. Yep.
I think
We'll
we
take
need
care of
another
that.
drinky.
We'll take care of that.
Let's get to that
let's
smooth
do-
ambler.
Let's do the
Seven.
smooth ambler. Number 7 now.
Yep, smooth amber.
Not the
Contradiction
Now I know
bourbon.
this Contradiction bourbon's your favorite.
Yep.
This is the Contradiction rye. So we're moving on to straight ryes now.
Oh, here we go.
Yes, sir.
Sorry. I'm probably going to be a little biased on this one.
I know, that's okay. I love rye. So the Smooth Ambler's a little different, where it's a West Virginia distillery.
West Virginia.
Please don't.
Mount-
No, please God. We'll get that stupid song stuck in my head all night. Oh,
Mountain
God.
Dew.
Take me home.
Terrible.
Country road.
Enough.
Talia's like, can't take you guys.
I just can't. Can't with you boys.
Dan, I'm never coming back. I'm never coming. Oh my
I'm
God.
not a boy, I'm a man.
She's a man. Look at that flannel.
All right. Very curious
yeah.
to see
All
how you guys
right.
like this one.
All right.
Because this one, I don't think you've tried this one, Dave. So I'm very
What?
curious to hear
Smooth
your,
ambler rye.
the Contradiction Rye.
Yeah,
You tried this one?
I've had all my contradictions
Okay, all right.
all over my palate.
All I can think of is that.
Anything that's got an elephant on a barrel, I've bought.
People love
I've
elephants.
bought.
I love the rye. I love the bourbon.
I've bought that.
Can we start censoring Dave, please?
Yo, Elefante.
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 Yeah. Is that any worse than Botten?
I think that's a soundboard.
Did I say that?
Yeah.
Quote,
Boughten?
anything with an elephant I've bought.
I have bought. Yep, there we go. God. I'm never going to hear the end of that after today.
I have purchased.
Yep.
Purchased.
I have purchased.
I have
I have
purchased.
bought it. Oh.
Dave is at the point he's making new
Boughten.
words.
Well,
That's
Pat,
my thing. I'm a wordsmith. All right, or murderer, depending on your current look on it.
Do you want a shovel?
Your persuasion.
Yes. Keep digging it.
Yeah, hatchet. Yeah. Digging it.
One more thing before we try. Well, talk about
Try the rye.
It's
Try the
cool
rye.
because on the back of each of the bottles of the Contradiction,
Yeah,
you can
looks
see
the
the batch
back.
number and enough. Don't make me come over there.
He said.
So it's batch number and who bottled it. So it's kind of cool. It's handwritten. Anyway, just a cool thing with the
Not
Smooth
printed.
Ambler. All right.
So what's the idea with putting the elephant on the barrel there? I mean, wouldn't the elephant like
Never forget.
totally crush
It's
the
like
barrel?
it's circus, man. You know, like you see the elephant.
Like a little
It's like the
emaciated
ball
elephant.
in the
Well,
circus.
He
So
had all the
it's like
bourbon, and that's what he did.
I'm gonna
a
buy.
bourbon barrel's very strong.
He had all the bourbon, and,
And
that's
then he
what
was like,
did.
"I'm gonna walk on that
I'm gonna
barrel."
stand on it.
Yeah.
I feel like that's what
Okay.
you call your drunk friend at the
Is
bar.
there anyone
You're-
else
you're
that's
just a real
confused
smooth
like
ambler.
I am now?
Yes.
Love it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's
Oh
going on
my
the
goodness.
soundboard. Smooth
No, it's not. Bree, I'm interested in your take on this.
I'm gonna have to hone this
I
episode.
haven't even sipped it yet.
We haven't
We
smoked a
paused in
single
the middle of our
glass. This is
program,
so
so
sad.
Bree can actually taste the bourbon.
Yeah, we haven't paused. There's no break today, people. We're
No,
just
there's
going
no
straight.
break. We're going on.
So I'm trying to remember because I feel like
I'm trying to remember.
I'm just
Just
saying.
wipe the drool away.
I-
there we
I feel like my first introduction to Talia's brands, I feel like the Smooth Ambler was one of the first that we were introduced to, and I remember us thinking like, who makes this? What is this? Why is this elephant on a ball on this barrel of whiskey?
Barrel.
Why are we bringing this into our bar? And I explicitly remember that when we tried it, we were pleasantly surprised. And I'm remembering that now, like trying it. It's kind of bringing me back to that high gold feel, or the cave hill, sorry. Like I'm really getting that honey sweetness off the bat compared to the last like 2 or 3 bourbons
Right.
we've had.
Yep.
That spice is completely gone. This is just a very like smooth, like honey forward bourbon.
Rye.
This one's a rye.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, even
It's a rye.
yeah,
This
it
is a
is
rye.
more
There's something
surprising.
rye with the
Yes.
rye.
Smooth
Very
Ambler is
surprising.
definitely known for its sweetness.
Yes, like
So-
it doesn't read like a rye at all. It's there's like really no spice to it. Like you do get a little bit of that heat underneath, but it doesn't have that like intense pepper that you get. It's really like you were saying, sweet forward.
Right. And even I think the cigar's mellowing the spice a little
I
in
think so.
the Smooth Ambler because I do always get sweet first when I try a Smooth Ambler, even with the rye. But I'm not almost getting any of that spice from the rye this time with this cigar. Which is strange because it brought out just that 25% rye in the high golds.
Yep.
So it's
Can
confusing.
I just, what,
No.
what I'm experiencing as far as how it affects the cigar, it's up the cream. That cocoa note is really big. The pepper is gone. I'm not getting really any kind of spice on it at all.
No, even like the saltiness is gone.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really strange. It's brought out the sweetness again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's totally acts the pepper. And I don't think it's a change in the vitola size here. Because we were just getting super pepper just a few seconds ago.
Right.
With the high gold. So that's really amazing how much different the cigar tastes.
yeah.
Right.
Are you getting that too?
Yeah,
Are
it's
you getting that
amazing
too?
how much the cigar is flip flop throughout the whole process.
I'm in agreement, but in different reasons.
Agreement.
So
Agreements?
agreement.
Agreements?
I'm not the
Not
only
agreements,
wordsmith here.
Agreement is a word. I'm in agreement with you.
Agreements.
I don't know. He's a lawyer. I
Agreement.
trust him. I feel like that's something
So-
that lawyers would say.
That is a word.
I believe
So-
it.
It's
For
a
the
word,
record, it's a word.
but not one
So-
that most of us use. So
All right.
use
He's
agreement.
smart.
So
I'm playing Scrabble with you.
so the rye.
Words
I mean,
with
you are
friends.
getting like very rye characteristics out of it. So you're getting. To me, there is a lot of heat and spice in it, but again, like that thick sweetness and kind of creamy leather is kind of combating that. But the palate definitely has like that lingering kind of oomph to it. And then the cigar, this is where I disagree with Dan. But I agree it's bringing out new notes, but different reasons. So I'm getting that hickory note I referenced earlier is more pronounced, and it's not just there, just like on the retro and like initially on the finish, but it's lingering now. And there is to me a lot of spice on it, on the retro. So I'm doing like a full retro, So through the nasal passage, a lot of like kind of red, black pepper. And then towards like the front of my tongue, like that black pepper from like the Nicaraguan tobacco is lingering for me. But the hickory note is like that sweetness is lingering further. It's like, you know, so it is bringing out different characteristics of it, but I would disagree that the spice is gone for me at least.
The hickory note is there. Spice for me, completely gone.
It's almost
It's almost like my nose just doesn't even register the spice anymore.
I'm still getting a little bit, but just like almost just on my lips.
Yep.
Of the spice.
I'm in the same boat.
Does anyone else experience what Pat's experiencing? That the spice is still there.
Very
No, not for
subtly.
me.
It's only like, so it's on my lips, and
Yeah.
I would say it's at the front of
tip
my
of
palate.
tongue.
Like,
Just the tip?
Very-
if I
just the tip.
like really just the tip. Wow. Like I feel like if I take a few puffs of it and I like marry it with a sip of the bourbon almost washes the spice away immediately. But if I'm puffing on the cigar more than I'm sipping the bourbon, then I get more of the spice. And then if I complimentary like
Yes.
puff
me
sip, then
too.
I get no
So-
spice at all.
Right now,
Ooh.
I'm going to
So
say
take a sip and then take a drag of the pipe.
Yeah.
Like right.
So take like 4
pipe-
puffs of the
pipe.
cigar.
cigar. take a drag of the cigar right after. Like
You're shut off.
and
finish
leave
your
some,
sentence. Finish your
leave
sentence.
some of the rye in your mouth,
Okay.
and take a draw from the cigar.
For
Tell
what?
me,
For
no,
what?
tell me what happens.
Okay.
You're gonna get like a bam, like pepper spice, or like spice.
Oh, I'll tell you what I'm going to get.
Yeah, see, it's like bam.
On the palate, on my lips, but not in the retro.
No, not in the retro.
I think that's interesting too, how the way that you sip the bourbon or smoke the cigar can influence like what you're getting. Like if you take the bourbon and you swish it around in your mouth and you swallow it, you might get something different
Right.
than someone who's puffing on the cigar a few times and then taking a slight sip of the bourbon.
Now, I'm going to
It
say
makes a
this.
difference.
I'm not talking about favorites or anything, but so far, I'm going to say, for me, the Contradiction changed the cigar more
Than anything else. Yep, I would agree with that.
Would
totally.
you all agree with that?
Yeah.
I would say that. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, so let's move on to the final thing here. Another rabbit hole. And this is the rabbit hole rye.
Yes.
Rabbit hole rye.
Okay. This was good going from sweet to rye. I think this was much more helpful for our palates.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I tend to try and go move sweet to spicy.
Yeah. You were totally genius with that, Talia.
I know.
Has anyone else out there done 8? Yeah, that's right. Hold it still.
Did anyone
Very
get
good.
the cigar today?
Yeah, lots of people got the
you did?
cigar. Yeah.
Are you bringing it to
Thumbs up?
Yes.
Yes.
Look at that.
Yes.
Thank you.
You guys are on camera.
Yeah, you know that, right? Everybody out there, you're on camera.
Brie.
All right. Very
Did you guys like the cigar? Good. Mike,
All right.
you have it?
Last one.
you liked it?
good. Mike really liked the cigar. He thought it was excellent.
Thank you.
He told me before the show.
I want to buy a box of these, man. I'm
Is
serious.
Brad
This is
smoking the
such a
cigar, or
good
is he
smoke.
doing another H99?
So good.
No, you're doing the cigar? What do you think? Delicious. Mm-hmm.
But even though it's a perfecto, Brad,
We know you don't like something small in your mouth.
Whoa. Hey,
That's
this
not-
is supposed to be a PG-13 show, Dave.
It's a
I'm
family.
just talking about ring gauge. You know,
Uh-huh.
nothing wrong with that.
All right, let's try
Just a
this here.
tip.
Well, that's an interesting segue to a cigar confession for tonight.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
This cigar
That
confession
is-
from a pastor about just a tip. Here we go.
That is,
Ayo.
you know, when you're cutting your perfecto or your torpedo, don't cut off too much of the tip of the cigar.
Yeah, pay attention to
The whole point of getting the cigar with the Perfecto top or the Torpedo top is to get that smaller ring gauge. And when you cut all of that off, you are cutting off the most expensive part of the cigar.
Defeating
You
the
know,
purpose.
the point
you're
of
defeating
the, point
the
of
whole
creation.
purpose.
Yeah.
And so, if you notice all of our stuff, it's just a little bit off. So you've got I took off a little bit less than a quarter of an inch, and I like cutting mine at an angle.
Yep.
So that when you put it in your mouth, it's
get that
resting
nice-
on your tongue. It feels really
Reverberate
good.
around the palate.
How did you
Yeah.
cut yours, Pat? Did you do it straight or did you angle cut it a little bit straight?
So sometimes I angle, but typically I always go straight. But
That's what she said.
Okay. Bree, how did you cut yours?
Slight angle.
Slight angle.
Yeah, I
And
do
how,
prefer the angle.
how did you do yours
How do
there?
you, what do you call that? I
That's
have one
a-
of those little.
Oh, you did a V cut. Okay. So, yep. Very classy there. Yep. Yep. So try to limit your cut to no more than a quarter of an inch. It's if you cut off more than that, you're really going to have a different experience of the cigar than what was intended with the shape. You want that smaller part of the ring gauge, in your mouth, and not the thickest part.
No.
Don't go there, Dave. Don't go there. All right, now.
Well, the whole point of a Figurado or a Torpedo is to have a thicker cigar with a smaller ring gauge in your mouth, and that
yes,
that
Dave?
allows you to appreciate a smaller ring gauge. And I think that's like a huge selling point, like because people are like, wow, that's a thick cigar, but in reality they're smoking a smaller ring gauge.
Well, and along with that, it takes more talent to roll a cigar
Yeah.
that has a torpedo top or is a figurado like this. And so that's typically why they're more expensive than like a straight Toro or a Corona Gorda or something that might be the same length.
Yep.
You're paying somebody with a lot more experience, and typically that means the draw is going to be a lot more consistent. It's going to be, if you're trying a brand for the first time and they have a Torpedo or they have a Perfecto, try that first, because you're going to get, the most experienced roller's interpretation of the cigar. And you're typically not going to have draw issues or burn issues with somebody who's rolling something like this, right? So that's all I have to say about that. Anybody have a different point of view as far as that goes? Pat,
I
do
mean,
you have
I
a different point of
agree.
view?
So I mean, with
course you
me, when I
agree,
have a
yeah.
Perfecto, like, so usually I cut as minimal as I can, just to kind of, because again, it's intended to have that kind of more slight gauge when you're drawing from the cigar, but it's a handmade product, so sometimes the draw is a little bit too tight for my preference. So like, a little is what I go for, but then I'll cut a little bit more off as I go, just to kind of get that
Yes.
draw that I want. But if you're someone that cuts off like an inch or an inch and a half of the cigar from a Perfecto, just to, initially, it might be a wide open draw, and you could have
Right.
cut maybe like half an inch less. So
Right.
that's where I'm at with it. Like when you buy the Perfecto, you want to kind of condense that smoke output. So if you cut off an inch of it, to Dan's point, you're cutting off the most expensive part of the cigar, so you don't want to do that. But me usually like torpedoes, I don't lean towards those for that reason, but it's a little bit. It's definitely like the angle you want to take, and then if you do what Dan does, and you kind of do like a diagonal cut on it, it condenses that smoke to the palate, so you can kind of get. I'll call it sexy with it, but or you can be Talia and just cat's eye cut it.
Yep. Yep.
I would agree with that. I feel like sometimes it's like less is more. Like you want to give the cigar the benefit of the doubt. Only cut exactly what you need to, and then if the draw
Yeah.
is tight, go more if you decide.
You can
Which
always
with-
cut more off.
Exactly.
You
You can't add.
can't go backwards. You're right.
I will say though, with the Vengeance, like I probably smoke the original Perfecto. I've smoked probably like around 10 times. And I haven't had one that's had a tight draw. So
Yeah.
with that cigar specifically, I'd say cut as minimal as you can off of it because it's gonna draw perfectly. But and then even with the box press here, like again, a little bit of a tighter draw, but it's still very acceptable. It's again like that water through a straw kind of approach to it. So again, if you buy a Perfecto to Dan's point, a little bit off because you want to get what that Vitola was intended to do, which is condensed smoke. And yeah,
All right. As far as, do you want to talk a little bit about the rabbit hole rye?
I mean, it's essentially
rye.
the
It's
same kind of
rabbit
thing,
hole.
but it's a rye. You know what I mean? So this is a straight rye where
Mm-hmm.
they do add a little bit of malted barley.
Okay.
I think it's 95-5 is the ratio.
Okay.
Rye to barley. Has anybody tried it? 'Cause
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I just did. Yeah.
It has like a unique note that none of the other ones had. I don't know if it's like a dried fruit or if it's like
That spice is
some
definitely
kind of
back.
like sweet wood. But yeah, it has the spice, but it also has like this extra like oaky.
It does
sweet
have
kick
a sweetie
behind
kick,
it.
yeah. Almost like a stewed fruit
Yeah, yeah.
kind of
Yeah,
sweetness
I got
to
like
it.
a raisiny sweetness,
Mm-hmm.
but
Are you guys talking in the bourbon or
the bourbon, yeah.
Yeah. As far as how it affects the cigar, it definitely, I think, cuts the sweetness, the bitter cocoa, bitter coffee, those stronger earth notes, and maybe that hickory is there that Pat's been talking about, but it's not that sweet hickory anymore. Dare I say it's kind of a dry hickory. It's bringing more of that kind of out of the cigar. As far as all 8 bourbons and ryes that we've had tonight, I would say this is probably my least favorite as far as the pairing goes. As far as the rye goes, it's really good. It's really good on its own, but I'm not sold on the pairing with it. Any of you have different ideas or agree with that?
I would agree with that.
You would agree with that?
I could almost see this more with like
Yes.
I don't know. It's another kind of complex spirit. Like I feel like I could almost like see this bourbon going well in like a Sazerac. I could almost see it going with like a cigar that has like a little bit more like, or even a pipe tobacco that has like that dried fruit with it.
Like a good Virginia or
Yes,
something.
definitely like a good Virginia pipe tobacco. I feel like the cigar is at the same time like too mild and too complex for this bourbon.
Okay.
This bourbon itself is complex, and I feel like the cigar has a lot going on too. But the bourbon plays like more to a very specific like dried fruit kind of sweetness that might be like better enjoyed with like a pipe tobacco.
What's your feeling, Dave?
I'm still with my favorite pairing is definitely still the Cave Hill. I'm sold on that. The first one we did. I feel like it had enough change and enough complementary, where it was just
Complimentary?
really complimentary. Thank you. It was
I've heard
just
it both ways.
really. It was really well
We
balanced.
speak fluent, Dave. Yeah.
So I hope so. It's been long enough. But yes, I'm with the Cave Hill.
Yeah,
Patwick.
with this pairing, I think it's kind of an injustice. Just we're getting to like that
Congestion?
back congestion. What?
What?
Injustice.
No, wait.
Injustice.
In
Okay.
injustice, because like we're getting to the back
My
end of the
ears are
Perfecto,
drunk.
so
Yeah.
like the cigar is closing off to more of like that kind of 50, 48 gauge. So we're getting a lot more of like that kind of bitterness, that espresso from the cigar itself. So I think that with the pairing being more of kind of a sweet, like leather, a little bit of spice, I think naturally it's not going to be really the best pairing. So I think had we had this in the beginning of the cigar when like that broadleaf sweetness was more of a prevalent note, it
That's
would have been
fair.
better.
That is
But
So you think if it had been earlier in the cigar, it wouldn't have been
yeah.
what we're all getting. But would you agree with it where we're at?
Yeah,
it's-
well, I
it's
mean,
kind of
it's
like-
definitely, again, it's subjective, but it's bringing out more of that bitter espresso, that dark earth, a little bit of that darker leather note, again, because of the broadleaf and the Nicaraguan tobacco on the cigar. But, and then to answer the question of like my favorite pairing, again, like each pairing spoke differently to the actual blend of the cigar, and I'll have to go with, was it number 4? Or was the Jefferson?
The
The
Ocean.
Jefferson
Voyage
Ocean.
Ocean.
Yep.
So again, I'm a Dominican tobacco guy, so the fact that it brought out that kind of, I guess, more of like the mild side of the cigar, the Dominican fillers, that brown spice, that sweetness is why I preferred that one. But even the Cave Hill, like just with the uniqueness of the spirit, having that really like kind of malty, creamy sweetness to it, kind of adding to the cigar. But again, like it's tough to kind of choose, but it's like they were all really good, but. Yeah, I would probably go with the Voyage, like the original Voyage.
I would almost be curious to like reorder the pairings with the cigar
Yeah.
because I feel like this last one would have been better categorized like right
In the
after the
beginning,
cave.
yeah.
I think again, like doing a Perfecto with this, it's interesting because it really kind of expresses the cigar itself. But again, with the nature of the Perfecto, like different, like again, like at the midpoint of the cigar when it's 60, like the fillers speak more than the wrapper.
Right.
So it is interesting doing it with a Perfecto, but I would say that if this was like the regular, you say like the Toro Vengeance, like I would say like this specific pairing would go really well with it. But like again, to Bree's point, like with this cigar,
Okay.
Yeah, I would almost like to start the cigar with that, like you said, because when I loved what the cigar did to the rye. So I loved the flavors coming out of the rabbit hole rye from the cigar, but then I started to not like the cigar as much
Yes.
because it was just, it was almost numbing like my mouth, like that spice quality. And like you said, maybe it's because it was towards the end of the cigar. So for me, the Ocean is my favorite. I thought it was a perfect balance. It balanced out all of the flavors, and it made me really enjoy the Ocean more and enjoy the cigar more than they were by themselves. Cave Hill is another one. Again, it was very sweet for me, but it made the cigar tastier to me.
Yeah.
I think the cigar was tastiest with the Cave Hill. The whiskey was tastiest with the rye, and then the perfect balance was the Ocean
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah. Yeah. If I were gonna pick a favorite pairing, it would be the Jefferson Ocean. I thought that was the best pairing it brought out, and again, I'm a Nicaraguan guy, so the fact that the Ocean kind of brought out those
The rye, the Ocean rye.
No, the
Bourbon.
Jefferson Reserve brought out the Dominican.
Okay.
The Ocean brought out more of the black pepper, the earth, and leather, and more of the Nicaraguan stuff, and flavors. So that was kind of what was the best of the pairings with me. I think an interesting question would be, with a cigar like this. I mean, we've been going for not quite an hour and a half, but almost an hour and a half with a cigar. That's enough for 2 different bourbons, right? 45 minutes apiece. I mean, which one would you start the cigar with, and which one would you end it with of the 8 that we've tried? Especially since we're talking about an experience where we're trying to get through 8 in a reasonable period of time. I mean, no one wants to drag this on for months, you know.
Honestly, I feel like I would start with the first bourbon, the Cave Hill, and the last bourbon with the cigar. And then, like, I feel like the middle range pairings would be the Jefferson's Ocean and Jefferson's Rye. And then finishing would be the standard Jefferson's and the small batch. I feel like those two were, they're just very straightforward and consistent and solid bourbons. And I feel like they would almost enhance like that bitterness and that pepper that you get towards the end of a lot of cigars and the end of this cigar. Whereas that like subtle cocoa sweetness would be enhanced by having like the sweeter bourbons like that Cahill, and the one we just tried, and then also I can't remember which one it was. The one that was I think the blue rabbit hole.
Oh yeah, the high
the
gold,
high gold,
the high
yeah.
rye. Yeah.
Yeah.
High gold was
Those
great
three
too,
were like
yeah.
complex, but they had that sweetness behind them, and I feel like those are better off going in the first half of the pairing, and then the more like oak forward bitter bourbons would be towards the end of it.
Okay. Dave, how about yourself? Like favorite, like if you were gonna have 2 different bourbons,
I
with a cigar,
actually totally agree with Bree. The Cave Hill, and then the last one,
The rye.
the rye, yeah, and
The
then
rabbit hole
other,
rye.
and then the rest. That it just my favorite is just the Cave Hill though. I'm sold on the Cave Hill.
you've got the sweet tooth. That's where you're at. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just where you're at. You know. Well, that's just about all the time we have tonight.
Yeah.
Thanks for being with us, Talia. This has been
Of
amazing.
course, absolutely.
Thanks for bringing all 8 of these bourbons
Yeah.
and carrying them all. I carried them all upstairs. It was no small feat for her to carry this stuff all in from the car. Jeez, that's you got some muscles.
Oh, you know it.
Next week we're going to be doing something a little bit similar, actually, along the beer route. We're having Keith from come on, where is it? Bellavance is going to be with us, and we're going to be smoking the Aganorsa Aniversario Corojo Toro, along with a number of beers that Bellavance has. And we're going to talk about which of the beers that he brings makes the best pairing. So it's going to be another multiple drink thing next week in the world of beer. And I hope you're all with us next week. It's going to be a really good time. But thanks for being with us tonight. Thanks, Talia.
Of course.
It's always great to have you on the show.
Oh, anytime.
We totally look forward to it. And hope you all do the Bourbon Challenge.
Yes, get your name on the plaque.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Let's get at it. Get your name on the plaque,
Go, fill
people.
it up.
All right. Thank you, guys.